The state visit by the Spanish royal family this week threatened to become a bit of a diplomatic nightmare, with MPs threatening to storm out of Parliament if the King used his speech to stake a claim for Gibraltar. Now, that was very elegantly sidestepped with only a fleeting mention of the territory, but the battle over who controls the rock is going to be a big part of Brexit negotiations. And we're joined in the studio now by Gibraltar's Chief Minister, Fabian Picardo. Hello, thanks very much. It's great to see you in the studio.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, we talked a bit there about the speech by the King of Spain, which he mentioned these new arrangements for Gibraltar. Have you got any idea what that could be?
Well, there are unlikely to be any new arrangements in relation to Gibraltar's sovereignty, if that is the issue. Let's be very clear. We have a decision of the British people to leave the European Union that is going to require us to change our relationship with the EU. Gibraltar has a border with the European Union, a land border with Spain, which is also a border with the Schengen zone. That's not the case in Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. And there will need to be new arrangements to handle the number of people that cross that frontier every day and come to Gibraltar to work, Gibraltarians' access to the European Union. But there's not going to be any new arrangements in relation to the sovereignty of Gibraltar. That is going to remain 100% British, because if we have to respect the result of the Brexit referendum, we must also respect the result of the referenda in Gibraltar in 1967, 50 years ago, when we chose to remain entirely British, and 15 years ago in 2002, the second referendum, which was on joint sovereignty, where the people of Gibraltar said, thank you, but no thank you. 99% of us want to continue staying entirely British.
I admire your optimism and your certainty there, but the one thing we do know, one of the few things we know about the EU's negotiating position, is that they have offered, or they want to give Spain a veto over a trade deal. I mean, how do you feel about that?
Well, they have suggested that they will allow Spain to determine whether any new trade arrangements which might be entered into between the UK and the EU, we think that will not be just one deal, there'll be a number of different deals, whether those should apply to Gibraltar or not will be subject to the acceptance by Spain and the bilateral agreement between Spain and the United Kingdom. That's probably contrary to EU law, because those agreements are likely to deal with things that have gone outside of the control of national parliaments. Although national parliaments will have vetoes, it will be a veto as to the acceptance of those deals, but not on the application of those deals, in particular in the area of services. There's a case called the Singapore case recently in the Court of Justice that says that those types of deals are for the Commission to do. So look, I think that it is really very bloody-minded indeed to say that Spain, that has a specific territorial claim to Gibraltar, should have anything other than the rights that the treaties give her, and that the Commission should pretend and the Council should pretend to create a new right is something that the people of Gibraltar won't accept, and the British government is on record as saying that they won't do a trade deal that excludes Gibraltar if it's relevant to Gibraltar.
Are you worried at all that if it means getting a better deal with the EU, the British government could effectively sell you down the river?
We've seen it before. We saw it in 1987 in relation to the exclusion of Gibraltar's airport from the open skies agreements that were done in those days, air liberalisation as it was known. But I've had cast iron assurances from David Davis, the Secretary of State. I have no reason to doubt that what he told me about not doing a trade deal if it didn't include Gibraltar, if it was relevant to Gibraltar, will be the case going forward. This is a fluid moment. It's a moment of aspiration when we try and do the best possible deal for the whole of the United Kingdom, including Gibraltar, and success will mean Gibraltar is included in those trade arrangements where they are relevant. If we are not included, because Spain and therefore the EU have managed to exclude it, that will mean failure on the part of the British negotiating team, and I bet on success, not on failure.
You bet on success, not failure, but at the same time it does feel, looking at how the UK's negotiations have gone so far, that they have backed down on some things like, you know, the timing of negotiations and so on. I mean, how confident should you be?
Well, look, I'm the backbone of this negotiation for Gibraltar, and the backbone is made of limestone rock. It's not going to be easy to buckle on that. I mean, we can have the war of the summer, the war of the autumn, or the war of the winter, if you like, on that. Gibraltar is not going to change its position. We were all in favour of remaining in the European Union. 96% of us voted to remain. But look, it's our obligation to energetically and enthusiastically now pursue the result of the referendum and deliver a successful Brexit. We're not going to get in the way of Brexit, but we're not going to be the victims of Brexit, that's for sure.
Now, there's one thing that when I heard that you were coming on the programme, there's one thing that I did want to show you, because we've done a lot of interviews over the course of the programme. One of them perhaps surprised us by getting so much reaction to what was said. And that's an interview we did with Lord Howard, Michael Howard. We can just have a quick listen to what he said with regards to Gibraltar.
35 years ago this week, another woman Prime Minister sent a task force halfway across the world to defend the freedom of another small group of British people against another Spanish-speaking country. And I'm absolutely certain that our current Prime Minister will show the same resolve in standing by the people of Gibraltar.
Strong words there from Lord Howard. It kind of seemed to kick off, lots of theories about the fact that he was almost declaring war with Spain. Is that helpful, that kind of intervention?
Well, Lord Howard is a long-time friend of Gibraltar. When he was leader of the Conservative Party, we had the attempts by the Labour government, and I'm a socialist Labour leader, to dilute the sovereignty of Gibraltar with joint sovereignty with Spain. Mr. Blair, who you're interviewing later, was responsible for that. So that we have a lot of affection for Mr. Howard. I don't think he was doing anything other than reflecting the passion with which the British people defend the right of the people of Gibraltar, as they did the right of the people of Argentina and people around the world to determine their own future, not by force of arms, but by force of argument and persuasion, that in the 21st century, this is the only way in which people can determine their political future, in the ballot box, whether that's choosing Brexit or whether it's choosing to remain British. So I think there was an attempt to extrapolate from what Lord Howard said, the most belligerent potential interpretation, which I think was unfair on the man, but all power to you for having got those words out from him.
Mischief making then, in your view. You mentioned actually a bit earlier in the interview as well, the fact we are interviewing Tony Blair later. We're going to see the full interview with Mr. Blair later on. In it, he suggested that it was possible that Brexit might not happen, and that in his view it was necessary that Brexit doesn't happen. Now, Gibraltar, as you said, voted very strongly to remain in the European Union. Do you think that there should be some flexibility, shall we say, on whether Brexit happens at all?
Well, if I may say so, Mr. Blair's history with Gibraltar, for the reasons I've just set out, is not the best. I mean, he was saying in 2002 that Gibraltar had to hand over half of its sovereignty. So you'll allow me to be a bit sceptical about what Mr. Blair says now, but I'll put it in this context. I think Mr. Blair is still a very good communicator. I think he incites passions in people, and if he has a view, I think it is right he should put it, and he should put it to the British people that Brexit is going to be very difficult indeed. Now, whether we have a successful Brexit or not, Brexit is not going to be easy. Even a successful Brexit is going to be very hard indeed. It has hijacked most of my time since our last general election in Gibraltar. It is a parliament-consuming event. Now, that doesn't mean it has to be a bad thing for the United Kingdom and Gibraltar over a period of 5 to 10 years. But people have to be prepared for what Brexit would mean, even if very successful, in the immediate moment. And that is not going to be a bed of roses.
And look, definitely happen, though, like Mr. Blair?
Well, look, if the engagement with the European Union is serious engagement, then we can extricate ourselves from those treaties. If it is not serious engagement, and some of what we heard from Brexiteers during the course of the referendum campaign was not serious about how you need to engage with the European Union in order to remove yourself from the treaties, that no deal and we'll walk away, that is not serious. That is not where politics is. That is not where the relationship that the United Kingdom has as a mature democracy.
Well, the Prime Minister said about no deal as well, walking away.
Well, and it may be that there are circumstances, extreme circumstances, where the sides are not able to come to terms. But that can't be what it is that we talk about every day. And I think David Davis is now doing a job of real engagement, of getting down into the detail. And if you do that, you might be able to deliver a successful Brexit. But I must say that Mr. Blair's job today should be to support what the British people have determined. Even those of us who didn't make that choice are engaged in trying to deliver a successful Brexit. Let's try and make the best of it, and let's see where we get to.
OK, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you very much.